Hi everybody and welcome back to my channel. It's Russell with Ink and Paper Blog. How are you doing today? Happy Wednesday. I hope you guys are feeling fall. It's actually starting to cool down here in Northern California. I'm wearing a jumper, as my friend Simon would say, and I have been wearing them for actually a couple of weeks now, and it has been fantastic. I hope reading is going well and everything else is, just plugging along as the year comes to a quick end. I am here today to wrap up the first part of my October reading. If you guys will remember, October started with, for me, dominated by the National Book Award long list. I was trying to get through it. So 3 of the books are from that. And then I have 2 more that I've read since then. I'm going to mix them up just a little bit and you'll understand why towards the end. Normally I tell you guys about the books in the order that I read them, but I have a reason. But I will say all 5 of these books are fantastic and phenomenal. So get out your pen, get out your paper, get out your Goodreads. For all different reasons, all 5 of these books really should wind up on your TBR. So let's go ahead and start with a short story collection, and that is A Lucky Man by Jamel Brinkley. This is currently shortlisted for the National Book Award. I always struggle a little bit with how to summarize a short story collection, but here is what I will say. Jamel Brinkley is an amazing writer. He has a tone and a way with words that I found personally unique and different, but also compelling and readable, totally readable. He tackles masculinity. He tackles masculinity from the African-American standpoint, and he just looks at his own community in such a way that you're really blown away by his insights, his storytelling, his characters. He's really, really good. Now, I can't wait to see what he does in the novel format because, a novel is always a little bit more up my alley. But I really think if you are a short story reader and you haven't read A Lucky Man, you're really missing out because I think it is really an announcement of a brand new, powerful voice in literature. So congratulations to Grey Wolf Press. This is their 2nd short story collection to make the National Book Award list in a row. Last year it was Carmen Machado with Her Body and Other Parties. And this year it's A Lucky Man with Jamel Brinkley. So there you go. Book number 1 on the list. The next book I'm going to tell you about, I was so excited to see made the short list because I thought it may be the one that was left out. But that's Where the Dead Sit Talking by Brandon Hobson. This is an Native American story set in Oklahoma. The whole entire story takes in Oklahoma. This is the story of a young man named Sequoia. Sequoia is in the foster system because his mother has been convicted of a drug conviction for the 2nd time, I think, the 2nd time, and she actually has to stay in prison for a while. Now, Sequoia, as we learn very early in the book, has some burns on his face, and he's a very unique young man. And I'll go into that in a little bit more. So this is very much sort of like a Bildungsroman. That's a very fancy word for a tale of a young protagonist growing up and going on a journey that makes them grow up. But what I love about this book is that Sequoia is complicated. He's dark. And what happens is he starts off in sort of a housing development, but he's moved to a foster family, an older couple that has 2 other foster children, Rosemary and George. You know how sometimes I am with names. I believe the little boy's name is George. And Rosemary is sort of is the girl that he becomes infatuated with, but not in the way that you would expect. And what's really brilliant is that we get to see multi-dimensions of Sequoia as a person. And I mean, as I said earlier, he's got some dark side to him, and it's fascinating. He is a character that I truly will never forget. And he stands out because he's not sugar-coated in any shape, way, or form. I will say both Rosemary and Sequoia are underage and they're both like chain smokers. And then there's George, who is much younger, and I believe he is somehow on the spectrum. And he has sort of these idiosyncratic patterns that he does. What I love about how George fits into the narrative is he shows a softer side of Sequoia and also sort of just like the normal teenage side. The book is not perfect. That I will say that the story itself, the plot, the ending, not 100% fully realized for me, but I didn't care because I think Sequoia is one of the most interesting characters I've seen on paper in a really long time. I am so happy it made the short list, and I hope more people read it. Soho Press did this one, which is another small independent press. Really happy for them because this book really stood out to me. Brandon Hobson is an author that I am now a total fan of. So that's Where the Dead Sit Talking by Brandon Hobson. So the next book I'm going to tell you about is one of those books that I'm going to caveat with. This book is not for everybody. The topic is going to be controversial, but I was blown away by Putney by Sofka Zinovieff. Sorry, Sofka, if I butchered your last name. I want to really thank Harper for sending me a copy. They sent me a proof, which is the one I read, but I love this book so much I went out and bought a hard copy for my shelf. Now, Putney is sort of, how I explain this is, Putney is what if Lolita grew up and became aware of what happened. That's sort of what it is. This is the story of Richard. I'm sorry, not Richard, Ralph. Ralph is the older gentleman. He is 20-something when he meets Daphne. Daphne is a young girl, and they start a relationship when she is 13 years old. That's the topic. That's the topic, guys. I'm throwing it out there. If that's not going to be for you, this book might not be for you. But what this book does is it rotates between three characters. We have Ralph, who narrates. Ralph in his 70s, who is, in the very first pages, you learn treating for cancer. We also have Daphne, who speaks. She is now in her 50s, I believe. And then we have a friend of Daphne's, Jane, who becomes involved and sort of is the impetus for Daphne realizing and reevaluating the relationship she had with Ralph as a child. There's a lot of flashbacks. We get to know Daphne. We get to know Daphne's family. We get a lot of different points of view on the same situation. What Sofka does in this book brilliantly is you think you're plugging along and you have created in your idea who Ralph is. And she at times makes you feel very sympathetic to him. Who Daphne is. At times she makes you not like Daphne. Who Jane is. Jane to me is the most fascinating character in this book. And I'm not going to tell you more than she's not what she seems. She has her own agenda. And the way that that is played out is just fantastic. Each character has its own distinct voice. It will make you uncomfortable. It will put you on edge. It will also make you doubt what you think about the situation. And because it's flipping back and forth, you're sort of getting pieces from all these different angles. Ralph's married to a woman named Nina. Found her fantastic, and her perspective. There's a lot about Greek culture in here. Daphne and her mother is Greek. Daphne is half Greek. Nina, who is Ralph's wife, is Greek. So there's a lot about that. There's just a lot. And I found this book to be an utter page turner. And I would stop it and go, huh, what do I feel? How do I feel about that? Sometimes I was feeling gross. Sometimes I was feeling opinionated. Sometimes I was feeling taught. I just think that this book, if you are looking for a book club and you have a book club that can handle such a controversial topic, you will have hours and hours of things to talk about, and it's readable and just so good. And that's Putney by Sofka Zinovieff. And again, thank you, Harper, for the copy that you sent me. I loved it. I picked up a copy. It's now going to be on my permanent shelf. If you're looking for an October read, that's where my next book comes in, and that is The Silent Companion by Laura Purcell. This is actually the UK hard copy, so I don't want anyone to get super excited if you're in the US, because this hard copy is freaking gorgeous. I mean, it's gorgeous. But I had to order it on Book Depository to get it. The US copy is not as gorgeous as this, but the story is so good. This is the story of Elsie. I think it's in the start. Well, I want to say it's in the 1600s. I apologize. Yes, 1655 is her section. Her husband has passed away, and she is returning to this house called the Bridge, where he died. He was getting the Bridge, this house that belonged to his family, ready for her to come to because she is pregnant. She and he are married. She comes from a way different social class. There's animosity and there's all that sort of Victorian goodness when it comes to sort of the class piece of it, the servants not appreciating her, her marrying a man who has way more money, way more stature, him dying quickly in the marriage. She's about to have the baby. And what happens is we find out that there's a history in the Bridge. And in the start of the book, the very, very beginning, the first section, we find out that something has happened at the Bridge, and our main character is now in an asylum, and she can't speak because of something that happened, and the doctor is having her write down because she can't speak. And so she's writing her story in the third person. In the middle of that, her sort of cousin-in-law, who is in her story, finds a diary in part of the house that is told 20 years before by another woman about stuff that happens in the house. A woman who has sort of this sixth sense. And why is it called The Silent Companions? I could just go on about this book, guys. It's so good. There are these wooden representations of people that are found in part of the house that are brought out, and they are creepy as heck. They add to the whole mystery. You're learning about, there's like this creepy mystery going on at the time of 1655. How did the husband die? The town doesn't like the house. It has a reputation for, historically, for people dying. I'm sorry, I wasn't holding it up. My hands are going so fast. You're learning about the history of the house and how, what happens, the king and queen of King Charles and his wife come, and something happens, and there's all this intrigue, there's all this creepiness, there's all this Victorian goodness. It just goes along. It is so good and creepy and delicious. It's so worth it. And if you haven't read it, highly recommend it. In the UK, her second book, The Corset's out. I may be trying to find that on Book Depository to send my way because it just blew my mind. And I don't read a lot of stuff that sort of has that tense feeling. It was never scary. Like, if you don't like horror, that's not going to be this book, but it will definitely keep you on the edge of your seat. It's a fantastic October read. So that's The Silent Companions by Laura Purcell. Last but not least is the book that I'm going to tell you about that comes out of order. And that is Heads of the Colored People by Nafissa Thompson-Spires. And this was longlisted for the National Book Award. It is a short story collection, and hands down was my choice to win the award. I'm going to do a sort of summary of the short list and my pick out of that. But I'm telling you, out of the long list, this book and this author blew my world away. This is a short story collection that focuses on, the way that the book says it is, it says, the Black identity in the contemporary middle class in these boundary-pushing vignettes. And what's really cool is, like, you deal with so many different things. You deal with body image. You deal with postpartum depression. You deal with classism. There is a fantastic story which is told in letters of these two moms arguing over their daughters and the gossip about each other through how they're sort of using their daughters as pawns. And then later on, the daughters are each a character or a main character in a future story, and you learn more about how their relationship formulated outside of their mothers. The last short story is about a woman who is a single mother who deals with health issues, and she's also dealing with the struggle that comes sometimes with being a parent and not knowing how to do it. I was on the edge of my seat that entire story. I kept saying in my head, she's not going to, she's not going to. It ended. I started the story over again. It is brilliant. Nafissa Thompson-Spires. I will buy everything that she writes moving forward. There are moments of pure written brilliance. There are compelling stories, compelling characters, and this cover is just gorgeous. And I am devastated it is not on the short list, because to me it was hands down the best book of the 10 that I read. So there you go. That's why I wanted to talk about it. So that's Heads of the Colored People by Nafissa Thompson-Spires. This is out by 37 Inc. Please go buy it. You guys, it is amazing. Amazing. So those are the 5 books that I read to start the month. I hope your guys' October is kicked off as well as mine has. As always, if you're a return subscriber, thank you so much for being here. If you're new to my channel, I hope you pick up all of these books. They are all worth your time. And as always, happy reading, and until next time, I'll talk to you later. Bye!